Hey there, I'm Raul. So glad you could return to the Daily Gold channel on YouTube. This is Labor Day, September 1st, 2025, and I am incredibly grateful that you have chosen to tune in. As the Labor Day weekend comes to a close, I hope you all are enjoying or had a wonderful weekend. I really appreciate you being here with me for this video. I have released a video in which I predicted the possible highs and lows of the gold price for the next 12 to 18 months. If I were to do that, I would also have to repeat the process with silver. That concludes our subject for this week's Macro Mondays. We're considering the potential future directions of silver over the following 12 months. In this case, we are making use of technical analysis. We're doing all of that while also looking at the past and the intermarket analysis. In the coming years, we will assemble it and establish reasonable goals. All right, I'll cut to the chase. Straight to the video, please. To begin, it is essential to grasp the utmost generalization while analyzing potential markets and their futures. The silver market landscape is clear to us. This vast 45-year-long basis is where it trades. This may or may not be a cup and handle pattern, but as I've shown in previous videos, the technical analysis suggests otherwise. Regardless, the 45-year base is quite bullish. Whether silver breaks out quickly or takes longer than expected, this will finally cause a dramatic increase in price. That is the truth of the situation as it stands. In addition, it is worth mentioning that this will be the most significant breakthrough in the history of the capital markets, surpassing even the most significant breakout in 1972. There was gold erupting from a base that had been there for about 110 years. Accordingly, the stage is being prepared for a silver breakout of monumental proportions. Okay, let's go on to the other charts. Very well, now we see the forest for the trees. The short to medium term is what we need to focus on. Here we have a silver monthly chart. It is customary to review and evaluate such charts once a month. Just so you know, the quarter will conclude at the conclusion of next month. That makes it much more important. This, however, is the last week of the month. At a little under $40 per ounce, this is where the silver spot market closes. Now at 35, upper 34s, and silver has broken out of this crucial support level. You might refer to it as a base here, but it's more accurately described as an irregular ascending triangle. But whichever way you slice it, that adds out to $41. For months now, $41 has been on my mind. That is the intended direction then. Moreover, however, we have broken out of the 35-point range, and the monthly chart indicates that the next major barrier is in the high 40s. 3 months ago, we did it. The monthly chart shows highs of 41. In my opinion, the highest weekly closes, I'd guess 43, are in the high 40s if you look at the chart that is available. We witnessed a breach over $35, which suggests a price of $41 per ounce. Nevertheless, there is more substantial resistance around 42. Therefore, it is possible that this rally may reach 42 or perhaps tick 43 before there is a pause or pullback. So we're aiming at 42, 43. At that point, you may experience a retracement. Now you know what silver's near to medium-term outlook is. Regarding intermarket analysis, you are aware of how much I adore 60-40 charts. Here we have silver. The lovely 45-year basis is clearly seen. Even though it doesn't say so, I take it as a monthly chart. It is a monthly indeed. Dividing silver by 60-40 yields this. Now, if you've been watching my videos, you might remember that I brought up the 60-40 rule in relation to gold a couple of years ago. Plus, gold's 60-40 ratio broke out of a 10-year base in March of this year. After that, what transpired? Well, investors began pouring money into silver and silver stocks in addition to gold. Even in gold stocks, they began to outperform. Now let's talk about silver. Here we have a setup with silver versus the 6040. It hasn't quite reached its 2020 or 2016 high yet, but it's gushing out of this monstrous foundation. There is still some way to go. This simply requires a slight upward push. Divided by the 6040, this is silver once again. On the other hand, A monthly chart would be formed if it can reach and close above the red line. Monthly closes are what we're focusing on. You have another base that lasts for another decade if it closes there. Thus, the stage is set for silver to face off against the 40. Such a shift in momentum suggests that investors are fleeing traditional asset classes like equities and bonds for more liquid alternatives like silver. That is the necessary change, or the driving force, that will cause silver to rise over $50 and beyond. The intermarket analysis is thus complete. Come on, let's get even more specific with this intermarket analysis. A weekly chart is now displayed here. A 60/40 fund called Large PX is what I'm utilizing. I have confirmed this with my data. As a result, we can see the past decade or two more clearly. On this weekly chart, silver is shown against the stock market and a 60/40 ratio. This is 60% of the total. Therefore, it's crucial. This indicates on a weekly basis that silver is trading at a level not seen in 5 years relative to the 60/40. Here we have a bar chart representing the weekly closing. Thus, the weekly closes are invisible to you. You'll have to take my word for it, but silver has hit a 5-year high versus the 60/40 at the end of the week. Therefore, it is imperative that this continues to rise and reach this stage. Then you're testing a basis that's 11 years old, not simply 10. Who knows? Maybe it consolidates until 2026, when it finally explodes. At that point, you're dealing with a 12-year base. Although we haven't arrived yet, this provides a clearer picture than if we were gazing at 100 years. You need to consider every possible time period. Silver is now competing in the sixth market. Here we have 60% silver versus 60% copper. Observe our current situation. We are about to enter a 4-year base against the S&P 500. Or more accurately, silver is about to enter a 4-year base. Because this infant breaks out in such a way, this is incredibly important. As a result, this will progress to this point and put that resistance to the test. This shows us the current situation of silver relative to the 60/40. But all of the charts are significant. This is the initial domino to fall, but it is still making progress and hasn't broken out yet. This is the first domino to fall when silver prices begin to rise sharply relative to the stock market. The chain reaction that follows will take us to this point and beyond. We won't see this baby emerge until much later, likely in 2026. You need money to flow into silver from other places to achieve that move above 50, so that's the gasoline for silver breaking above 50. I understand. Assuming silver can cross $50 in the next year or two, let's have a look at some possible price objectives where it could go. Among all the analog charts, this one is my favorite. After gold, this is how silver performs, reaches a new record high. In the past, gold has done this 3 times, in 1972, 1978, and again in 2009 and 2024. Therefore, this is plotted using the year 2024 as the scale. All of these actions were initiated a week or two prior to gold's breakout. On February 20th, 2024, this began. Here you may observe the other moves, while black represents this silver move. 1972 is hued in a pale blue. Note that 2009 is represented with dots. The 3 moves average here is shown in dots. The dot matrix representation here is the mean of the 2 steps. By the way, we've come a long way to the point where it's officially nighttime. This is the move that skyrocketed from 1978 to 1980. Presently, we are at $100. A few folks have told me that they want me to maintain this chart. I decided to keep it on the chart. However, we have not yet gone parabolic in silver. The secular bull market is far from over. You are free to disregard this line. That is why I am just considering 2 here. It allows me to get an average. The light blue and black don't go together exactly, but they're rather comparable, as I've mentioned in previous videos and tweets. This is 1972 all over again, and I adore what happens to the 1972 line on the 2024 scale. Here it went up to 49 and then down to 42. By the way, you can see that this is a cup handle. Here I go again, retesting quickly. Holy cow. Take a look at this stunning pattern of cups and handles. My ideal scenario would be for silver to reach $50, test it, fall to $40 or $41, and then retrace to $50 before resuming its 1972 breakout. But the line from 1972 is visible here. Yet again, this can cost close to, maybe $100. And with that, we have reached, or rather we have arrived at, April 20th. Silver has to reach $50 before it can break $50, and I'm not sure if it will reach $100 at that point. It seems like we're falling slightly behind the blue and these averages, or maybe it's just 2009 already. In contrast, between 2009 and 1972 is the other line. Consequently, I believe a scenario similar to these three lines could unfold, though we are now behind in terms of time. These changes, if implemented, may take place in the mid to late 2026, or possibly later, as this cup and handle arrangement essentially lasted that long. Observe this, all the way down to 4. In other words, it lasted for nearly 4 months. Now that we've reached this point, we still have 4.5 months to go till we reach 49 or 50. Maybe we'll finally break out in 2026 if we don't hit 50 until the year comes to a close. Perhaps we can repeat these kinds of actions in the second part of 2026. Also, I know I've shown this chart previously, but there's something else I'd want to bring out. And listen, everyone can see that we're preparing for a major assault from this base. Recall that in 2004 and 2005, copper broke out of what seemed like a 33 or 30-year base. In addition, oil broke out of a 24-year base in 2004 and 2005. Both commodities had massive price movements following such breaks, eventually after such outbreaks. Taking into account both these movements and the measured upside objective after silver breaks $50, we arrive with a price of around $96. After silver breaks $50, it might go up to $96 or even $96 within 12 to 18 months following the breakthrough, depending on the timing of the copper and oil markets. So if it breaks $50, you should expect to see $100 in silver about 2026, possibly in late 27 or early 28. That concludes my opinions on silver. I'll have to leave it at that, but I would appreciate your feedback. I was wondering if you have any projections or targets for prices in the next year or two. Feel free to contact me at any time. Much obliged for your being here today. I hope you take full advantage of the last days of Labor Day. In the near future, I will be releasing another video to all of you. Vince Lancy will be joining us soon for our monthly wrap-up. Sending best wishes and gratitude.